Welcome to Techstination. Joining us is Dave Isay, founder of StoryCorps. Thanks for joining us, Dave.
Great to be here.
Well, before we get into today's news, which is really exciting, give us a bit of background for folks who aren't familiar with StoryCorps.
Sure. So I started StoryCorps about 17 years ago. Very, very simple idea. We're a nonprofit and built a booth. We started in New York City in Grand Central Terminal, where you can bring anyone who you want to honor by listening to their story, a parent, a grandparent, a friend. You come to this booth, you're met by a facilitator who works for StoryCorps, who brings you inside. The door shuts, you're in complete silence. The lights are low. It's kind of a sacred space. And for 40 minutes, you sit across from your grandmother, just two microphones, you, your grandmother, the facilitator in the corner, and you ask questions and you listen. And as you know, the microphone gives you the license to say things and ask things you don't normally get to say and ask. So people thought of this from the very beginning of StoryCorps as if I had 40 minutes left to live. What would I say to this person who means so much to me? At the end of the interview, you get a copy. Another stays with us and goes to the Library of Congress, so your great-great-great-great-great-grandkids can get to know your grandmother through her voice and story. It started out as kind of a crazy idea, but then spread across the country. We've had about 700,000 people participate now in the United States. So it's the largest single collection of human voices ever gathered. And, because of the nature of what happens in these interviews, we're kind of collecting the wisdom of humanity.
Really, really interesting. And now you're partnering with the Ad Council for a campaign called Love Has No Labels, One Small Step. And what you're tackling is the divide that exists in this country and beyond the country really today. People not talking because of political beliefs, other beliefs, nothing like we've seen before, at least in our lifetimes.
Yeah, it's very dangerous. This is we are launching a campaign with the Ad Council, and it's part of their campaign called Love Has No Labels. Our effort is called One Small Step, and this started about 5 years ago. We started testing this. We're in the human connection business, and noticing the huge rift in connections in this country between people across the political divides. We became deeply concerned and thought about whether there was a way to take StoryCorps and try and help a little bit. And we created a new kind of StoryCorps interview, very different than the StoryCorps interview with your grandparents. This one is between strangers. We match strangers across the political divides to come together, not to talk about politics, but just to get to know each other as human beings, because it's hard to hate up close. It's built on the most studied probably theory in the history of psychology called contact theory, which was developed in the 1950s, that says under very specific circumstances, when you put enemies together and they have a visceral emotional experience with one another, that sense of hate can melt away and people can see each other in a new way. If you do it wrong, you can make things much worse. But if you do it right, something kind of magical can happen. And our Hippocratic oath is that we do no harm to people. So we tested One Small Step for years and years and years and just launched it nationally. And it's an intervention that works. It's not the answer to everything. Again, it's not about talking about politics. It's just about seeing the humanity in someone across the divides. But it does deal with this issue of toxic polarization and helps us move one step away from this abyss that we're, standing before, because a democracy can't survive in a swamp of mutual contempt. And we're working with Ad Council to spread the message, to try to convince the country that it's our patriotic duty to see the humanity in people with whom we disagree. Because we know what happens when we don't. When we see there's nothing wrong with arguing, there's nothing wrong with disagreeing, but when you start to see other people as less than human, the Germans, Nazis called Jews and others Untermenschen, less than human, and slavery was about dehumanization and what happened in Rwanda. We are quickly, as you know from the polls, moving down a very, very dangerous trail here. And we're hoping that we can pull the brakes and remind the country of the basic goodness of people, no matter what their political persuasion. Because the only thing we know for sure is that if this culture of contempt wins, we're all going to lose.
So people can sign up online to take part in this and have conversations with strangers. Tell me how this works and how you deal with the issue of people wondering, well, what am I going to say to this other person who I think I hate?
So you go to the website, lovehasnolabels.com/onesmallstep, and you sign up, and you get a questionnaire that you fill out. It takes about 5 minutes to fill out, and it asks you, obviously everything is completely private. Again, we're a nonprofit, and our, we do no harm to folks. You fill out a questionnaire with information about your politics, a little bit of information about yourself, and you write a paragraph about who you are. And then we match you with someone across the divides. And now during COVID, before COVID, all of our StoryCorps interviews have been face-to-face. Now they're virtual. So if it happens in the next couple of months, it'll be virtual. You're matched with someone across the divides. And first thing you do is you have seen their bio. You don't know their last name, just their first name. And you read your partner's bio to them, and they read your bio to you. And then together you pick questions that you want to talk about. And it's an amazing experience. I mean, it takes courage to do it, but actually being in the conversation is not difficult. I mean, there's tried and true StoryCorps questions. Who's been kindest to you in your life? Tell me about your parents. What's the best thing that ever happened to you? What's the hardest thing that ever happened to you? How do you want to be remembered? Tell me about your kids. And the normal StoryCorps interview is 40 minutes. This is a 50-minute interview, and it goes by in a flash. And it's almost eerie. All of these, almost to an interview, ends the same way with the participants. You could listen to one and it's the same as the next and the next. The participants say, after the pandemic is over, I want you over for dinner. What's your phone number? Can we exchange emails? It's a very intimate experience, and it's a very powerful experience. I did a One Small Step interview myself a couple of months ago. I waited until we had the methodology down to a T and talked to someone who I never otherwise would have talked to, whose politics are completely different from mine, and she's become a friend. She wrote me a note after the interview that said, I came out of the conversation feeling exhilarated, heard, and respected. And that's all we're looking for. We know that this is something of a moonshot, but given the state of the country, we're going to take a very, very hard swing at this.
Yeah, I suppose you could ask, well, what's the alternative here? Civil war, right?
Yep. Experts talk about, where we're going with it. And, the one thing is violence. And, we've started to see violence, and we hope we won't see any more. But if we don't turn this around, we certainly will. The second is political gridlock. To go back to One Small Step, you can't, we will never be able to land a person on the moon again. You can't do anything in a completely broken down government where, the only objective is to defeat the other side. And then there's the public health piece of this, and that goes back to the Ad Council, that there's this feeling of loneliness and despair and disconnection and rage that is, just bad for us as a country. We have got to figure out a way to throw the brakes on what's happening in this country, and happening so quickly, as you see from the polls, or you can just imagine where this is going to go. As I said, it's just a no-win situation. But, the good news is that the majority of people in the country, about 89%, are tired and worried, scared, love this country, and want to find a way out. And we hope that One Small Step is a small antidote, kind of vaccine for this pandemic of hate and contempt that's spreading so quickly through our country.
Well, we can hope that One Small Step will be the thing that's spreading throughout the country. That would be terrific.
And that's what we're trying to do. Yep.
The website, once again, is lovehasnolabels.com/onesmallstep. Dave Isay, thank you so much for taking the time with us.
Fred, thank you so much. Be well.
Right now, our country feels divided, but there's a place where people are coming together.
I was nervous to talk to someone so different than me.
Me too.
Love Has No Labels and One Small Step are helping people with different political views, beliefs, and experiences connect through conversation, and it feels good.
This conversation gives me hope.
It gives me a lot of hope too.
Take a step toward bringing our country and your community together. Start a conversation at lovehasnolabels.com/onesmallstep. A message from StoryCorps, Love Has No Labels, and the Ad Council.